Good evening, night shifters. This is third shift HFY. Settle in and let tonight's stars tell their story.
Do you know what frightens empires? Not ghosts. Records. The vault exhales a thin, stale breath as I break the seal. Dust spirals in the lamplight like tiny, indecisive galaxies. Somewhere in the walls, a century-tired chiller ticks and falls silent, as if it, too, is listening. I set the recorder on the table, a courtesy to history I was never afforded, and draw the black-edged folder toward me. Omega Black. The spine is cracked where a younger version of me once bent it too far. Eager, ignorant. My name is of no consequence. Titles were stripped from me the day I refused to amend the minutes. If you require a label, call me what the Concord called me in their polite condemnations. Archivist. I prefer witness. The folder opens on the smell of old ink and heat-sealed polymer. Redactions march across the first page like funeral bands, thin, black, and absolute. Beneath them, the words that survived. Project Cantor. Initial authorization. Purpose: end siege doctrine by non-destructive decisive action. Mandate: minimize body counts, maximize capitulation. Notes: public narrative control required. Control. Such a tender verb for what followed. Humans will tell you the Iron Choir was a fleet. This is tidy and false. Fleets are counted, tracked, deterred. The choir was a method, a doctrine taught to hull and crew, until metal and breath answered a common tone. The first time I heard it, the sound vibrated in my jaw and in the memory of my jaw, as if the bones were instruments. You do not forget a voice that plays you. You will ask why they were born, why a species that had already clawed through its own dark century would teach its ships to sing the way storms sing. You can read the official reasons. Stalemates at Titan and Mars, logistics ran to bone, the Concorde's patience thinning to wire. You can read the unofficial truth. Humanity learned that wars are not won by destroying what stands against you, but by making it stand down. A page turns, a photograph slips free and claps the table. I do not need to see it to know the image. A Canto-class spine under scaffolds, organ masts like a cathedral raised against vacuum. Below, a training ring in 0G where figures in black exchange holds without a word. The caption they made me add calls it boarding readiness drills. It does not mention that the drills ended before most observers could name what they had seen. I was there when the choir was still rumor threaded through budget lines. I remember the assembly's speechcraft, precision, deterrence, peace, and room's small silences where the alien envoys did their arithmetic. The humans never promised mercy. They promised time saved. Time, that hardest currency of war. The Concorde nodded because they heard relief. I took the minutes and wrote the other word none of them dared speak aloud. Fear. Another document. Another tone between the lines. If you lean close, you can hear what the redactions cannot drown. Intership neural link. Harmonic cascade. Resonance veil. Strange poetry born from math and necessity. A choir must have parts. Cantar to conduct, psalm to deafen, hymn to cut, requiem to flood the void with a chorus loud enough to drown the planet's courage. This is how you build an idea you can park in a hangar and teach to obey. I pause. The recorder clicks softly. I consider stopping here, leaving the first file as it has lain for centuries, incomplete by design, merciful by omission. But I was banished for telling less than the whole, not more. Understand this before we begin. I admired them. I fear them still. On the last page of the folder is a single line they forgot to blacken. A clerical error, small as a breath. Operation Dawn's echo, authorization granted. When the hymn first sang, a defense grid went silent in 4 minutes, and the war that should have lasted another year ended by nightfall. The reports hold it surgical. The envoys called it unacceptable. I call it the moment the galaxy learned a song it could not unhear. I close the folder. The vault breathes again. In the humming quiet, you will hear the story's first note, if you listen hard enough. Not loud, never loud, but certain. The kind of sound that makes a captain set down a weapon and a witness pick up a pen. Come closer. The other files are colder. The truths inside them are not improved by distance. We begin. The Concord table was never truly round. Circles imply equality, and no empire here believed in such illusions. The chamber's walls were carved from Salif Prime's cliffstone, its surface alive with tiny rivulets of water under glass conduits. Columns of pale light fell from the domed star chart ceiling, each marking a delegation station in the spiral arrangement. At the inward curve, the Terran Assembly's seats, 3 slabs of black composite, faced the scale-armored giants of the Dravik Dominion. Between them, the fluid grace of the Naravati High Speaker and the crystalline stillness of the Salu-Un Axis Envoy.
Honored delegates, the sieges at Titan and Callisto bleed our fleets. Convoys run hollow. The outer solar defense grid will hold the Dominion's line unless we change the terms.
Change the terms or abandon them?
The Concord's charter forbids escalation beyond declared theaters. You ask to test its spine, Admiral.
Not escalation. Conclusion. In hours, not years.
Is this without bombardment, without siege, and without trace?
Markova lifted a sealed case to the table's light. No crest, no inscription, but the cold designation, Omega Black.
That clearance is for endings.
Project Cantor will break the grid without glassing a world. No civilian dead, no prolonged assault.
And when such a choir turns on its own kin,
Then you will hear the hymn, and know why it must be sung only once.
They granted her the clearance, not from faith, but from fatigue. They believed they could lock the hymn away when it was finished. They believed wrong. Above them, the star chart shifted, locking onto a sector marked in pale gold, Dawn's Echo.
You cannot build a hymn from steel alone. You need voices. You need hands that move as if the thought to strike and the strike itself were the same thing. The Salif Prime shipyards hung in a crescent over the planet's pale seas, their superstructure braced like the bones of titans. Under the glare of welding arcs, the first Cantor-class hulls took shape. Triple keel spines, armored organ masts reaching into void. Sol frigates sat like dark blades along the ring docks, their resonance keels unfinished but already humming faintly in test cycles. The air here always tasted of hot metal and iron wash. I was only a recorder, but even then, I could feel they were building something more than ships. Figures in black boarding armor floated in controlled orbits, mag-hyots clacking against bulkhead rails. The space was alive with muffled thuds, short exhalations, the snap of grips locking and releasing.
3 seconds to neutralize, or your team eats the floor. Again.
The squad moved. 2 caught an opponent by the arms, twisting in opposite directions. A third pivoted to plant both boots in the target's back, driving them against the bulkhead. Magnetic clamps clicked.
The engagement was over in less time than it took to inhale.
Again, and faster this time.
These were the old ways. Names lifted from forgotten continents. Kali, Silat, Krav Maga, each stripped to its bones and reforged for vacuum and steel corridors. A trainee intercepts a rifle barrel mid-swing, wrenching it away before the trigger breaks. 2 mag boot fighters exchange elbow and knee strikes, bodies tethered only by the thin cable of their training harness. A figure flips in 0G, wrapping both legs around a target's arm and shoulder until the opponent's motions stop entirely.
Weapons are tools. You are the weapon. The ship only delivers you to the door.
How do you make them move like that? It's as if they've rehearsed for years.
Not rehearsed. Linked.
Crew members sat in concentric rings, each with a sleek cranial interface pressed against their temples. Lights along the walls pulsed in synchronized patterns. Their eyes tracked the same motion without hesitation. The link was more than coordination. It was thought shared at the speed of instinct. The choir didn't signal to attack. They were already attacking. In less than a year, the choir had its voices. The only thing left was to let them sing. Authorizations move faster when fear sits at the table. Project Cantor left the Concord chamber, a whisper, and entered the shipyards, a deadline. The choir was not yet a name, but they were already in motion. The Dawn's Echo sector hung on the Assembly's war maps like a blade tip, a cluster of relay stations and defense platforms strung in a perfect arc. The Dravid Dominion's hold there had cut Assembly supply lines for 3 years. Siege fleets had tried and failed to break it. Until now. Inside the Cantor-class Silent Accord, bulkhead lights pulsed amber as final checks cascaded through the neural link lattice.
Status on all choir elements.
Aurora's dagger reporting green across all systems. Resonance keels at 90%.
Starfall Canticle prepped for micro-veil jumps. Boarding teams locked in.
Star of Winter drone bays loaded. Atmospheric drop units on standby.
They speak like they've done this before, but there's no record of it.
Captain Valen, remember the objective. Disrupt, dismantle, disappear. Survivors are an investment.
Understood. We'll leave them their ships. We'll take the fight out of them.
The Silent Accord led, flanked by Psalm-class frigates, drifting in perfect intervals. Hymn cutters tucked under their shadows. Requiem carriers trailing like dark-winged shadows. No running lights, no transponder beacons. Just shapes against the starfield. The first note of the hymn is not sound, it's absence. No pings on the Dominion's arrays, no engine flares for their pickets to see, only the faint change in the dark when the veil begins to thin. Operators watch status boards flicker, faint ghost readings rippling across sensor grids.
Getting bleed on the spectrum bands, like an echo of nothing.
Lights dim, displays ripple into synchronized readouts. A low vibration hums through deck plating, more felt in the bones than heard in the ear. That's it. That's the hymn. Dawn's Echo never saw them coming. That was the point. The Valkoras crew had manned their posts for hours without incident. Dawn's Echo was always quiet before shift change. Too quiet.
Sector sweep clear, but I'm still getting interference, like an echo with no origin.
A tremor passed through the deck. Subtle, almost imagined. Then the lights dipped, not to black, but to an amber haze. Console text waded. Comms whispered static in unfamiliar rhythms. The hymn, faint at first, like a thought you try to ignore. By the time you notice it, you're already inside the melody. 2 officers turned toward the aft entryway as the hatch cycled without code. It opened on silence. 3 black armored figures stepped through. Mirrored visors, no insignia, moving as though gravity obeyed them out of respect.
Contact! Contact!
The first figure was on him in a breath, catching his rifle mid-raise. A twist, clack, weapon gone. The Exo staggered, arm limp. The human didn't look back. A second choir operative pivoted into the comms officer's space, an elbow into the chest plate, both boots locking to the deck as the Dravik was driven backward into a bulkhead. Magnetic clamps snapped on, immobilized, silent. It's over already. 2 figures, micro-veil, jump into a corridor, materializing behind a pair of guards. One is taken in a joint lock, forced down to a knee before a stun baton arcs against his armor's junction. The other is spun into the wall, helmet striking with a hollow thud, both down in less than 4 seconds. No waste, no shouts, just motion and stillness, in alternating beats. San-class frigate cuts the Valkorat's comm grid. Enemy calls for help loop back as static hums in harmonic cadence. Requiem drones pour through auxiliary hatches, each one emitting a fragment of the choir's tone, saturating every corridor. The Cantor's bridge feeds every move to every ship, the link binding them tighter than instinct. The captain sat, fists on knees, breathing hard. The choir operatives ignored him as they moved on, leaving him unbound.
Why are you leaving me?
Survivors were the point. A war ends faster when someone is left to describe what can't be fought. A battle that had bled 3 years from the war ended in less than an hour. To the officers on the field it was decisive. To those at the table, It was something else. The vast hall of Salith Prime's council complex now sat empty, save for a handful of delegates and aides. Holographic projections shimmered above the table. Tactical feeds from Dawn's Echo, annotated with timestamps. 0.0.0. Veil breach, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Outer grid collapse, 57 minutes and 19 seconds. Dominion withdrawal.
No planetary damage. 0 assembly casualties. Enemy fleet reduced to a non-threat.
And yet, you left them able to speak.
Exactly. They will describe what they saw. That will serve us more than their destruction.
Psychological warfare, the most efficient contagion.
I have seen sieges. None end this clean, or this quiet.
In the silence that followed, I saw it in their eyes. Not relief, not celebration. Calculation. The first measure of a song they feared might be sung again.
Admiral, understand this. The Concord will not permit the choir's use in disputes beyond this war.
Then end the war. Quickly.
Delegates leave in measured silence, each carrying the image of black armored figures moving through smoke-lit corridors. They thought the hymn could be kept in a vault. They thought it was a weapon you could set aside. But songs have a way of finding the air. No chatter, no idle crew noise, just the faint vibration of the ship's harmonic spine settling after the strike. Helmets hang in orderly rows. Combat gloves are folded on the bench beneath each one, palms open as if waiting to be worn again. I have walked these decks in the stillness after victory. It is not celebration you hear. There is no singing, no cheer. Only the echo of footsteps, measured and certain, as if the mission never truly ended. Captain Valen stands alone, visor tucked under one arm, staring at the empty starfield. Behind him, the rest of the choir remains in neural link chambers, their minds still half intertwined, the connection slow to dissolve.
They'll come for us one day.
Because they fear you.
Because they should.
The harmonics hum once, low and resonant, before vanishing completely. That was the first song of the Iron Choir. The galaxy would spend centuries trying to forget it.